Today is Wednesday, April the 24th, and the market was down a little bit today, so we lost those all-time highs. We're going to see that later. But first of all, we've got declining that led advance the stocks just by a bit. So it was almost like an even day. The McClellan oscillator started the day right at zero, so it's likely to stay right around there. And we said we'd be in this choppy range for quite some time, like we saw in this area back here last July, August. But if you look at this same time last year, we did this, but always on the upside of the median line, and now we're on both sides. So chop. Let's look and see what happened in the market. So in the S&P, looking at the weekly again, we still see that we have fallen. See, the high was 29.67, and we closed just below it. Let's look at the 1 hour. 1 hour popped out of that range, so that is good. We can get rid of that now. Actually, I'm going to keep it there, and let's see if we come back into that range tomorrow. Today's down was driven by AT&T and Caterpillar, which both reported not so good earnings, but we have good earnings coming out of Chipotle today, and Microsoft, and Facebook. So let's see what happens to those stocks. Apple up 50 cents, continues to chug along. Today finished at the bottom of its candle, so it lost whatever it gained at the beginning and closed 42 cents higher, but had a range of $1.43. On the weekly chart, we still see that we have room to go, that we'll get cloud interference at 210.21. Candle interference this week is much higher at 212. Next week, candle interference is going to be at 207.43. So it's, I'd say there's an opportunity now for a little bit of a pullback in Apple. And we have earnings coming out next Tuesday. I am still short puts and still rolling them, and now I'm next week's 200s that I'm short. Let's look at the stock that we traded yesterday, which is Caterpillar. Caterpillar had, it popped up on the initial earnings release, earnings per share release. I just saw it on my phone that it was up like to 144. But by the time the market opened, a little bit more about their earnings had become, was known, and it opened with a big drop. And it continued to just play in this range of its opening first hour for the rest of the day. So remember that I had sold 142 calls and 140 calls. I was able to roll the 142 calls, and I rolled them into next week's 140s because I think, as I posted on Twitter, if you look at the daily here, we bounced off the 50 moving average. Both the simple and the EMA are exactly the same points. So that was strong support. We bounced off of that. But we're going to get resistance on the 8 EMA, which is 140.63. I just took a line right here. I drew a green line saying that this would likely be an area of resistance because we found resistance back here in that area. We found resistance here. Let's see if we've got others. I think we had others. No, we didn't. So on the weekly chart, we dropped to the bottom, and where did we get support? Not only did we get support on the 50s, we got support on the cloud. So if anybody was looking for a solid area for support, it was definitely going to be when the bottom of the cloud and the 50 moving average represent exactly the same point. The 200 is just below it, but that was just too much support. Too many people had buy orders at the bottom of the cloud and on the daily 50 moving average, so it was able to move up, but not by too much. So we've spanned the top and bottom of the cloud this week. Next week we're going to move, and I suspect we're going to be in the range of the cloud, so I'm comfortable holding 140 short calls next week. I told you I had 500 shares, so I had 5 short contracts, and they made $1,800 today. So it just shows you the power of covering your stock just before earnings, especially when you've got a narrative in your head that says that the stock is not going to do well because it's just affected too much by the tariffs in place and the European economy. We saw gold is getting, on the weekly cloud, is getting support from the flat cloud. We're dipped a little bit below that. Intel pulled back 19 cents. WDC, this is the daily. It's not doing much. Now it's got earnings next week, so we're going to do the same thing with it next week. We're going to be selling calls at the 55 level, but who knows between now and then where that's going to be. We're keeping our eye on Whirlpool, which pulled back, and none of our triggers were hit, of course. We didn't cross this trend line from this candle through this candle through this candle. We're not above that. We did get support on the 50, but we're still in the cloud. The Chiku span is well below the resistance level on the 200, so we're keeping our eye on Whirlpool, but that's a stock that I would like to own, but I'm not going to do it until I see the Chiku span in here, which means that price will be up here. Thank you very much for listening.